I mean, when Julie says, I don't say anything that I can't provide evidence of and the paperwork, the big thing about these trials is prosecutors will say something, but they will not provide the evidence or the proof. And we've got to accept that in a joint enterprise case, the level of evidence and the burden of proof is almost non-existent for the prosecutor. When you are charged with joint enterprise, you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. It's completely flipped any understanding of the justice system now.
That's very interesting.
I think I will say as well, Mark, the jury took. Yeah, I just will say something as well. The jury took a lot longer to decide on Mark than they did on anybody else. They took quite a bit longer. They couldn't make their mind up. They asked the judge to recap the evidence against Mark, and Mark's legal team was out of the courtroom at the time and the judge was asked to postpone it, and he went ahead anyway and summed up. And he gave quite a biased view when he summed it up. And you know, Mark weren't even allowed to talk in the trial because the other two went cutthroat. So Mark was advised not to even stand up and say anything.
That happens in a joint enterprise cases when it looks like things are not looking too good. They allow a cutthroat evidence. I mean, I would tell anyone if they in the local area, if they know of a multi-handed case, to sit through the trial process. They will be appalled at the low level of evidence that goes on.
Yes.
How a person is deemed of bad character in order to convince the jury that they're guilty of the crime that they're being prosecuted. They go around the world to throw mud at your character rather than prove categorically that you have committed this crime. So, I mean, as a campaign, we call joint enterprise a lazy law. It's a very lazy law that allows the police to swoop up lots of people. It allows the courts to sort of convict multiple people for the same charge, leaving them. I mean, some of the people that come to us will say there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever. And you might think that is ludicrous to put someone in prison when there is no evidence. But if you attach the phrase joint enterprise to the conviction, it's easy to believe it. It really is easy to believe.
Jan, how many cases of joint enterprise is your organization currently looking at?
Currently, we've got over 1,400 men, women, and children who have come to us, and I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we've recently won a legal battle with the Crown Prosecution Service because we want to know the age, the ethnicity, the gender, and whether people have disabilities of the target area, the people they target. Because we've noticed that lots of people with autism, more people of colour, because you can call them gang members. So if you're a person of colour and you live in an inner city and a crime happens, they'll swoop up 10 of you and say that you're gang members, but they will not prove categorically or show any evidence that you are a gang member, other than the fact that you might all like the same type of music, or you might have once gone to school together. It's a friendship circle, but a prosecutor will call it a gang. And juries are being convinced that people are criminally associated, but they're not being convinced of the actual crime that each one's committed. And I don't think jury members actually realize that when you say someone is guilty, that they are getting a life sentence, and they are getting a life sentence for a crime they didn't commit, and they know they didn't commit it because the evidence doesn't point to them committing it, but they'll get the same, if not longer, than the perpetrator. And we're talking, and the youngest person we support is 13 years old. A 13-year-old getting a life sentence when the evidence points that he didn't commit any crime whatsoever, didn't even commit any violence, but because someone else stabbed someone, he is now got a 99-year life license. So his life has ended, and it's becoming a more popular tool to use. Because
joint enterprise
means the police and the prosecution don't have to do any work.
Joint enterprise for a long time has concerned me. I mean, I think there are some people obviously who are at the scene and have knowledge or could have done something about it, and they're rightfully convicted. But I think joint enterprise has been used far too loosely to convict people in a lot of cases.